G'day everyone, it's Taylor MB here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my ranged Magicka Templar build, the LagPlar. If you suffer from horrendous ping and can never land sweeps even when someone is standing right in front of you, if people constantly CC break before the ability animation is even cast on your screen, or if you're just looking for a viable ranged Magicka setup, then this build is for you. Offensively, this build utilizes a destruction staff with multiple range damage over time and burst abilities to blow opponents up before they can even engage you. Defensively, we take advantage of Templar's amazing synergy with Sword and Board to create stupendous survivability with the option to quickly switch from defense to offense in those opportune moments to win tough, outnumbered fights. We'll start off by looking at our offensive bar. Very first skill is very simply Degeneration. This provides us with major sorcery, increasing our spell damage, a small heal over time, and a small damage over time. The second skill along is Purify and Light. Now this one is very important for our burst DPS. We're going to be popping a lot of damage over times on our opponent, and Purify and Light needs to be down first to soak up all that damage and copy it back to them in 6 seconds time. Our third skill along for a damage over time and for a hard CC is Shock Reach. Fourth skill, Reflective Light. This is an AoE damage over time that sticks to your opponent. So it doesn't matter if they're kiting around, they are still going to be taking damage from this skill once it lands. It also gives a 40% snare. So when you combine this with the Sacred Ground passive, which snares from your rituals, you're going to be moving a lot faster than your opponents, allowing you to reposition and control the fight. Our execute is Radiant Oppression. Because this is a channel, this also counts as a damage over time. And our offensive bar ultimate. There are 3 good options for this one, but only really 2 that stick with the ranger theme of this build. You have Soul Assault and Meteor as your ranged options, and Dawnbreaker of Smiting if you like to get up close and personal. Soul Assault is great in a 1v1 situation. It is a very powerful ult and it fits in your rotation perfectly. The Purify and Light is going to go off right as you're halfway through it. So it's going to put amazing pressure on that one opponent. But it does lock you up for its duration. You can cancel it, but then you've wasted the ultimate. The second ultimate I like to use is Meteor. Now this scales amazingly well with multiple opponents, which Soul Assault absolutely lacks. However, in a 1v1, because Templar is one of the only 2 classes that doesn't have a hard CC that goes through block, Meteor is actually significantly less effective. So you do have to balance that up with the fights you usually find yourself in. Soul Assault for nuking a solo person down, or Meteor for that 1vx situation. Not having an AoE CC is also not a particular problem for Meteor, because when you've got multiple people pounding on you, it's very unlikely that they're all going to notice the Meteor ring under one of their allies' feats. And just a quick note, after you have used a Meteor, make sure you put your house directly on top of the Meteor. Those people are still going to be standing in it, and it is one of the strongest ground damage over times in the game. So make sure they keep standing in it, and it is amazing damage over time ultimate as well as a huge burst ultimate. And now for our defensive bar, Sword and Board. First up, we have Defensive Stance. This is an amazingly cheap skill even for a Magicka user. Without any stamina cost reduction, it only costs 2k stamina, and it allows you to reflect an incredibly large array of skills back at the opponent. And you get multiple advantages from this. Firstly, they're just doing extra damage to yourself, which is going to boost that damage that Purify and Light does even more. It stuns your opponent, which is especially good in an outnumbered situation where you don't have time to stun all of them individually. You can pop Defensive Stance and it will stun one person while you focus another one down. It also increases the amount of damage you can block and reduces the cost of your blocking. Secondly, we have our burst heal, Honor the Dead. Now you can use Breath of Life here as well. It just depends what situations you generally find yourself in. If you small scale a lot, then Breath of Life is definitely going to help your group mates more. But if you're more solo, then Honor the Dead is definitely the way to go. It makes sustaining on a Magicka Templar incredibly easy. Our third skill along is Extended Ritual. Again, the other morph of this one is perfectly fine. The advantages of Extended Ritual is it really helps your defense by cleansing 5 negative effects as opposed to 2. However, Ritual of Retribution can help you proc Scoria while you're on the defensive, which combined with an ultimate or other time burst that you have can really aid in turning around an outnumbered fight. Personally, I chose Extended Ritual because the 3 extra effects it removes drastically increases your survivability, even when not against a damage over time build. Even just removing those armor debuffs is incredibly powerful. Our third skill along, we have Channeled Focus. Yet again, either morph of this skill is fine. If you're playing in no CP or otherwise struggle with sustain, then pick Channeled Focus. If your sustain is fine, then you definitely want to go for Major Protection and Major Vitality that the other morph gives you. And our final skill on our defensive bar is Elusive Mist. Now this is amazing for repositioning in Cyrodiil. Combine the snare of Reflective Light with the passive Sacred Ground, which procs from your ritual, plus the Major Expedition from Elusive Mist, and it's actually incredibly easy to kite on a Magicka Templar when you need to. And then our defensive ultimate, Remembrance. This is going to provide you and your group with an amazing heal over time that's going to keep them alive through ult bombs. Yet again, the other morph of this skill is also incredibly viable. I prefer Remembrance because when you're solo, you need to guarantee that you're staying alive. Alternatively, you can run Spell Wall. This allows you to keep blocking and mitigating damage whilst you're able to heavy attack and regain stamina so you can keep blocking after the ultimate's expired. And now on to sets. On the defensive side, we're wearing 5-piece Transmutation on our Sword and Board bar. This set is amazing because it's both a tank set and a regeneration set rolled into one. And it's also group effective, so you're doing everyone else around you a favour. On the offensive side, as you've probably noticed, we're wearing 2-piece Falcon Scoria. Synergizes amazingly well with all our dots and helps complement our burst damage. We're also wearing 5-piece Julianus for that amazing spell damage and spell crit stat boost. It's a very solid set, and we're wearing 5-piece light on the bodies. Finally, we have 1 Master's Destruction Staff. The reason we can get away with wearing 2 5-pieces, a monster set and a 1-piece, is because we have Transmutation double backbarred on both our shield and our one hand, which allows us to get the Master's Destro Staff on our front bar, which gives us an extra K damage for every time we use Shock Reach, plus a very handy cost reduction. We are using a Lightning Destruction Staff for this build, because that helps us proc Scoria from our heavy attacks, and it's also easy to regen Magicka with a channeled heavy attack. However, running an Inferno Staff can still work, because it helps boost the damage of all your single target abilities, so especially if you choose to run with Soul Assault, Inferno Staff might be a better option for you. And now just to cover some of the miscellaneous aspects of the build. We are running tripots and immovable pots, just depending on the situation how you use them. Generally I use immovable pots offensively, so if I'm versing a Warden or it looks like someone's up to the CC phase in their rotation, then I'll pop an immovable pot so I can keep going with my rotation and mess theirs up while I can keep doing DPS. As far as traits go, we're running 4-piece Sturdy, 4-piece Impenetrable. Now you can switch these runs and balance them out however you like. If you find you're running out of stamina, then put a few more sturdy pieces on. If your stamina management is down packed, then put a few more impen pieces on for that extra defense. We're also running tri-stat everything on all of our slots. We use every stat in this build, so having those tri-stat enchants combined with our tri-stat food is very important to get those max stats boosted up nice and high. Our offensive bar trait is sharpened with a weapon damage enchant, and our defensive bar trait is powered with a stamina return enchantment. We're running the Atronach Mundus for Magicka regeneration. We're also a high elf for this build, but that's by no means necessary. Any of the Magicka races would work just as well. The second to last thing I wanted to share with you guys was just this screenshot here that gives an overview of the entire build. It has all the traits, all the enchants, all the weights, everything you need to know to be able to really dissect this build. It's also got the CP down the right hand side, but I'm not going to go into any detail about that, but it's just there if you would like to reference it. The last thing I wanted to share with you guys is just what the typical opening rotation on this build looks like. You start off on your sword and board bar by pocketing your buffs, defensive posture, rune, and ritual. Swap to your destruction staff bar, get that entropy down straight away to get major sorcery, quickly followed by purifying light so that any damage after that is copied. And then you start with your damage abilities. So do reflective light for the damage over time, for the major prophecy, and for the snare on the opponent. And then what you do next depends on your opponent's health and whether or not you have an ultimate available. If you're using Soul Assault, then simply Shock Reach and Soul Assault. If you don't have an ultimate up, then Shock Reach and Heavy Attack. If you're ready to execute without an ultimate, Shock Reach, Radiant Destruction. Or if you're using Meteor, it's very important to proc the Meteor first, then Shock Reach to stun them, and then into your execute. So just to give a very quick demonstration on this Cliff Strider here. So you're on your sword and board bar, defensive posture, rune, ritual, get your entropy down, your purifying light, your reflective light, your shock reach, and your radiant destruction. And that wraps up the build video, guys. I hope I've been able to impart some knowledge onto you and given you some ideas on how to play a range Magicka Templar or how to play a Magicka Templar when you can't rely on sweeps because of your lag. Hope to see you guys playing LagPlar out there. Have a good one.